Oh, that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old, and if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
You're never going to be president of the United States by insulting your way to the presidency.
Let's see, we're going to build a wall. Who's going to pay for the wall?
And I think you can see I'm having a good time. I really am.
Love him or hate him, Donald Trump didn't just break the shape of American politics, he shattered it. His presidency was a cyclone of controversies, jaw-dropping moments, and scandals that shook the nation to its core. But here's the question: what was the most shocking moment of Trump's time in power? Was it the secrets behind closed doors, or the chaos he uncovered for the world to see? Stay with us as we unfold the stories that defined an era, a presidency like no other, full of twists, betrayals, and moments that changed history forever. Are you ready to dive into the storm? Let's get there.
Our country needs a truly great leader, and we need a truly great leader now.
Before Donald Trump became the 45th President of the United States, he was a billionaire real estate tycoon, a reality TV star, and a name linked with scandals and intense controversies. Yet in 2016, Trump accomplished what many thought was impossible. He redefined American politics and entered the White House. His campaign slogan, "Make America Great Again," resonated with millions of Americans who felt left behind by globalization, low wages, and a political elite they believed had ignored their struggles. Trump supported individuals on this dissatisfaction, presenting himself as an outsider willing to drain the swamp. But his rise wasn't without its controversies. From his remarks about immigrants to promises of a border wall funded by Mexico, Trump divided the nation even before he set foot in the Oval Office. His ability to dominate the news cycle with shocking statements and never-ending social media posts was both his greatest strength and his most polarizing trait. His victory over Hillary Clinton wasn't just an electoral upset, it was an intense cultural shift. Trump won key battleground states like Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, securing the presidency despite losing the popular vote by nearly 3 million votes. His victory exposed deep divisions in American society: urban versus rural, progressive versus conservative, and establishment versus populist. As we dive into the scandals of Trump's presidency, it's essential to understand this context. Trump wasn't just a politician, he was a phenomenon. His presidency was less about policy and more about personality, a style of leadership that blurred the line between governance and show.
This is a tough business to run for
I know,
president.
you're a tough guy, Jeb.
And we need to have a leader that is
Real
principled.
tough.
You're never going to be president of the United States by insulting your way to the presidency.
If he builds the wall the way he built Trump Towers, he'll be using illegal immigrant labor to do it.
Such a cute soundbite. But here's the guy that buys a house for $179,000. He sells it to a lobbyist who's probably here for $380,000, and then legislation is passed. You tell me about this guy. This is what we're going to have as president.
Here's the guy that inherited $200 million. If he hadn't inherited $200 million, you know where Donald Trump would be right now?
What Donald Trump did was use eminent domain to try to take the property of an elderly woman on the Strip in Atlantic City. That is not public purpose. That is downright wrong. And here's the problem with that.
Okay.
The problem was it was to tear down. It was to
Jeb
tear
wants
down.
to be. He wants to be a tough guy. He wants to be a tough guy tonight.
It was to tear down
I didn't
the
take
house,
the property.
and the net result was you tried.
I didn't
and
take
you
the
lost
property.
in the court.
Donald Trump's presidency didn't just change the policies of the United States. It transformed the whole cultural and political landscape. Almost overnight, the country seemed to split into two opposing camps: those who viewed Trump as a hero standing up for forgotten Americans, and those who saw him as a danger to democracy. This polarization wasn't accidental. It was by design. Trump's aggressive approach to politics lived on conflict. He dubbed the mainstream media the enemy of the people, dismissed political opponents with nicknames like Crooked Hillary and Sleepy Joe, and frequently bypassed traditional channels of communication by tweeting directly to his tens of millions of followers. Under Trump, fake news became a rallying cry for his supporters, while phrases like alternative facts and post-truth entered the cultural dictionary. The divide wasn't just political, it was personal. Thanksgiving dinners turned into battlegrounds. Families were torn apart over political disagreements, and even friendships dissolved as Americans fought with the unexpected results of Trump's presidency. His policies sparked vast protests, from the Women's March in January 2017 to the Black Lives Matter demonstrations following the death of George Floyd. But for every protester, there was a counter-protester waving a MAGA flag, declaring their full support for Trump. The Trump effect wasn't limited to America. Globally, his America First ideology challenged alliances and treaties, from NATO to the Paris Climate Agreement. World leaders were either forced to align with him or prepare themselves against his unpredictability. By the time Trump left office in January 2021, the nation was more divided than ever. The scandals we'll explore in this video didn't just define his presidency, they also revealed the contrasts in how Americans saw their country and their future.
Hillary Clinton's going to be a horrible president. Okay, you got to see this guy. Oh, I don't know what I said. I don't remember.
I would imagine it can only get worse.
They're bringing crime. They're rapists.
But we have some bad hombres here, and we're going to get them out.
And some, I assume, are good people.
But we're going to build a wall. Who's going to pay for the wall?
And I think you can see I'm having a good time. I really am.
Rosie O'Donnell's disgusting. I mean, both inside and out.
You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs,
Take a look at her. She's a slob.
slobs, and disgusting animals. Your Twitter account...
Only Rosie
several-
O'Donnell.
Now that we've set the stage, let's dive into the top 10 scandals that defined Donald Trump's presidency. These aren't just stories of political conspiracy. They're moments that shaped history and continue to impact the world today. It was the summit that left jaws on the floor. In July 2018, President Trump stood shoulder to shoulder with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Helsinki. The world expected tough talk on Russia's interference in the 2016 US election. Instead, Trump stunned everyone by siding with Putin over US intelligence agencies.
He just said it's not Russia. I will say this, I don't see any reason why it would be.
I don't see any reason why it would be Russia. The after effect was immediate. Both Democrats and Republicans accused Trump of surrendering to a foreign adversary. Even some of his true supporters in Congress called his actions a disaster. Cable news exploded with questions. Was this incompetence or something more threatening? This moment wasn't just embarrassing. It was a public relations nightmare that left allies questioning America's commitment to democracy.
They're great people. They're great fighters. I like them a lot.
October 2019. After just a single phone call with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, Trump made a fateful decision. He ordered US troops to withdraw from northern Syria, leaving America's Kurdish allies exposed. For years, the Kurds had fought alongside US forces against ISIS, sacrificing thousands of lives. Trump's decision to leave them helpless against Turkish forces was seen as a betrayal. The immediate aftermath? Turkish airstrikes, displaced families, and the revival of ISIS cells in the region. Criticism came from all sides. Military leaders called it a strategic failure. Even Trump's loyal Republican allies broke ranks, with Senator Lindsey Graham saying it would stand as a stain on America's honor. This wasn't just a foreign policy misstep. It was a humanitarian crisis that underscored the dangers of sudden decision-making.
Give you a update on the hurricane. We got lucky in Florida, very, very lucky indeed. We had actually, our original chart was that it was going to be hitting Florida directly. Maybe I could just see that, Kevin.
it was going to be hitting directly, and that would have affected a lot of other states.
Sometimes truth really is stranger than fiction. In September 2019, Trump claimed Hurricane Dorian was on the way to hit Alabama. When meteorologists corrected him, Trump responded not with an apology, but with a Sharpie. Yes, he changed an official weather map to include Alabama in the storm's path. A bizarre standoff between Trump and the National Weather Service followed, with the president refusing to back down. And then there's the nuking hurricane story. Reports emerged that Trump had suggested using nuclear weapons to disrupt hurricanes. And this was a suggestion that scientists called not only absurd, but catastrophic. These incidents became the food for late-night comedians, but they also raised serious concerns about Trump's understanding of science and his inability to admit mistakes.
We have a great country. It's not going to take long. You see what's going on. It's coming back. It's coming back strong. It'll be greater than ever before.
June 2020. America was in confusion.
There have been violent protests for a few days now there.
Nationwide protests erupted after the killing of George Floyd, demanding an end to police brutality and extreme racism. But instead of calming tensions, Trump chose confrontation. On June 1st, peaceful protesters near the White House were forcibly removed using tear gas and rubber bullets.
Mayors and governors must establish an overwhelming law enforcement presence until the violence has been quelled. If a city or state refuses to take the actions that are necessary to defend the life and property of their residents, then I will deploy the United States military and quickly solve the problem for them.
The reason? So Trump could pose for a photo holding a Bible in front of St. John's Church. The scenes were surreal, and the backlash was wild. Religious leaders condemned the stunt as a misuse of faith, while military officials criticized the use of force against civilians. Even General Mark Milley, seen walking with Trump, later apologized for his involvement. This moment became a flashpoint, symbolizing the administration's approach to protest and its willingness to use power for political theater. In May 2017, just months into his presidency, Trump met with Russian officials in the Oval Office. During the meeting, he revealed highly classified information about an ISIS plot, information provided by Israel, one of America's closest supporters. The leak was so sensitive that it wasn't even shared with other key U.S. partners. Intelligence officials were angry, warning that the disclosure could threaten sources and future cooperation. Critics saw this as carelessness, while others questioned Trump's motivations. The incident added fuel to ongoing investigations into Trump's ties to Russia, deepening the shadows over his presidency. When Hurricane Maria ruined Puerto Rico in 2017, it left the island in destruction. Homes destroyed, power grid down, and lives lost. But the Trump administration's response was widely criticized as slow and inadequate. Then came the notorious towel-tossing moment. During a visit to Puerto Rico, Trump was filmed throwing rolls of paper towels into a crowd like basketballs. To many, it symbolized a lack of empathy and understanding of the crisis. Adding insult to injury, Trump repeatedly downplayed the death toll, calling it a Democratic conspiracy. For Puerto Ricans, this was more than a scandal. It was a betrayal during their darkest hour.
What we're doing as a nation is inflicting enormous harm on these kids and on the parents when it's totally unnecessary during this time when they're waiting for their asylum hearing.
This is a cruel policy. It amounts to state-sponsored child abuse. Donald Trump created it, and Donald Trump should fix it immediately. If he won't, then the Congress should fix it immediately.
One of the most heartbreaking policies of the Trump administration was the zero-tolerance immigration policy announced in April 2018. It led to thousands of children being separated from their families at the US-Mexico border. Images of children in metal cages and the sound of their cries shocked the whole wide world. The administration initially claimed it was necessary to control illegal immigration, but public outrage was harsh and hard. Faith leaders, human rights groups, and even members of Trump's own party condemned the step. Court orders eventually forced the administration to reunite families, but reports later revealed that hundreds of children remained separated even years later. This scandal wasn't just a political misstep, but it exposed the human cost of harsh immigration policies.
This is a CBS News special report. I'm Gail King with Anthony Mason and Tony DeCopel here in New York. The White House has just released a transcript of President Trump's July 25th phone call with Ukraine's president.
In that call, the president asked for an investigation of Democratic presidential hopeful Joe Biden and his son Hunter, who used to be a director of a Ukrainian oil company. A whistleblower report related to that phone call led House Speaker Nancy Pelosi to open a formal impeachment inquiry.
A Justice Department statement this morning mentions the intelligence community's inspector general who investigated the whistleblower complaint. It says in part the inspector general's letter cited a conversation between the president and Ukrainian President Zelensky as a potential violation of federal campaign finance law.
Yeah, we didn't get a lot of time with the transcript. We weren't allowed to take it outside of DOJ, but we took some of the inserts. We took notes. This was a 5-page document. There's a congratulations on the election victory, but President Trump did allude to Europe not doing enough to help Ukraine, but then he seems to veer into the DNC server. He mentioned CrowdStrike, which is the company that investigated the Russian hack of the DNC server. And then from there, he progresses to ask the Ukrainian president about Joe Biden. And let me put this quote up on the screen for you to see. This is what the president said, according to the transcript, which, according to senior DOJ officials, is not verbatim, but this is what they have. Quote, the other thing, there's a lot of talk about Biden's son, that Biden stopped the prosecution, and a lot of people want to find out about that. So whatever you can do with the attorney general would be great. Biden went around bragging that he stopped the prosecution. So if you can look into it, it sounds horrible to me.
I would like you to do us a favor, though. Those were the words that ignited a firestorm. In July 2019, Trump held a phone call with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, asking him to investigate Joe Biden and his son Hunter. What made this request scandalous? Trump had refused nearly $400 million in military help to Ukraine, aid they desperately needed to counter Russian aggression. Critics called it an abuse of power, utilizing U.S. foreign policy for personal political gain. The call led to Trump's first charge in December 2019. While the Republican-led Senate cleared him, the proceedings were historic, claiming his presidency as one of controversy and division.
On the east side, about 10 U.S. Capitol police officers kept the chanting crowd at bay at the bottom of the steps. For 4 minutes, that's where they stayed, until they were joined by more U.S. Capitol police officers. 2 minutes later, the insurrectionists overtake the Capitol Police. Seconds later, one insurgent stands atop the Capitol stairs waving a Trump flag, a sign that they seized control of the steps. Meanwhile, on the north and west sides, near the Senate chamber, anarchists were using ropes to scale walls, objects to break windows, and brute force to bust open doors.
Overseas Capitol Police was surprised to discover the 1,200 officers on duty January 6th.
January 6, 2021 was a day that will live in disgrace. As Congress gathered to certify Joe Biden's victory, a mob of Trump supporters stormed the U.S. Capitol, fueled by the president's baseless claims of a stolen election. For hours, the world watched in disbelief as rioters smashed windows, looted offices, and clashed with police. Lawmakers were forced to flee, and 5 people lost their lives. While Trump initially told the rioters to stay peaceful, his later remarks, calling them special people and saying "we love you," sparked outrage. critics accused him of sparking the violence, leading to his second charge. This wasn't just a scandal. It was an assault on democracy itself, with consequences that continue to evolve.
The urgent message to stay home appears to finally be getting through. In California, the notoriously busy highways are nearly empty. The hustle and bustle of New York is at a standstill. Governors in 4 states have now asked residents not to go out unless absolutely necessary.
That's all it is, just a feeling. I'm a smart guy. I feel good about it.
Nowhere is the coronavirus crisis more real right now than in our nation's heartland. Many hospitals are overwhelmed despite months of preparation.
And finally, the defining crisis of Trump's presidency, the COVID-19 pandemic. From downplaying the virus as it spread globally to suggesting unproven treatments like injecting disinfectant, Trump's handling of the pandemic got widespread criticism. The U.S. became one of the hardest-hit countries, with over 1 million lives lost and countless others forever changed. Critics pointed to delayed responses, mixed messages about masks, and a lack of national strategy as reasons for the devastating toll. While the Trump administration did help accelerate vaccine development through Operation Warp Speed, the overall handling of the crisis left many feeling abandoned during one of the darkest periods in modern history. We've only exposed the surface of one of the most polarizing figures in modern history. Whether you see him as a revolutionary leader or a constant disruptor, Donald Trump's impact is undeniable, and the debates, scandals, and questions will echo for generations. But what do you think? Which moment stood out the most? Did we miss a story that you believe defines his legacy? Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into history's biggest controversies, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next thrilling story. Thanks for watching. See you next time.